How does meditation interact with psychotherapy? And can it enhance therapeutic outcomes for mental health disorders? Up until now, the entire idea of psychotherapy is to reinforce, to put an individual into sleep, deeply asleep in their own world of problems, comfortably. The objective is not to remove the problem, because if you try to remove the problem, you have to talk about the solution. But in psychotherapy, we are talking more about the problem than the solution. We are closest to the problem, and in trying to talk about the problem, think about the problem, make a person experience that problem, make them aware of it, there is an assumption that it is solving the problem. But solving the problem and addressing the problem are two very different things. Carl Jung says, the one who looks outside dreams, the one who looks inside awakens. True therapy is something that introduces an individual to this act of turning inward, a forceful, purposeful, focused intention to change the direction. The only thing we suffer is the suffering that comes from going outward. It's an actual physical journey we have undertaken. Throughout our lives, we keep going farther and farther away from our home. Just like physically, in the outside world, in our three-dimensional world, there is a place where we live, there is a place where we work, there's a place where we go to have fun, but we always come back home. We go for a vacation, but we don't just stay there forever. That is our certainty. We go to sleep and wake up in the morning. We come back to something familiar. That is what keeps us rooted. Just imagine if you were a complete nomad and you don't know why you are a nomad. You don't know what you're doing. You're just walking. And you are completely at the mercy of the elements. Depending on who you meet, depending on what happens, your life unfolds. There is no sense of control. The reason why we don't live like this, it's because we cannot live completely by chance. We cannot leave life to chance. We want to control as much as possible what we can control. And one thing we can control is that anchoring place. The idea of a home, which is not just a building, not just a place, but where we are most comfortable, where we don't have to pretend, where we don't have to be scared, where we can be ourselves. Now, just as this applies in the outside world, in the physical world, in the internal world, it applies even more so. There is a place where we all come from. There is a place that is our own. There is a place that doesn't reject us, that doesn't question us, that doesn't criticize us, that doesn't make us suffer. There is a place that accepts us fully, unconditionally, with zero conditions, no restriction of space, no restriction of time, no restriction of what you want to be. There is a place where we are everything. We are a totality. Now, that place is the purest expression of consciousness. There is a place where nothing can enter. No thoughts can enter. The bodies cannot enter. Desires cannot enter. But you can. Only you are allowed. Why? Because that is who you truly are. That is where it all started. What you are going through is a limited experience of life. This should be the first placard on every psychology therapy hall. This should be the first thing psychotherapists should be taught. You are not interacting with a person with problems. You are interacting with a totality that has forgotten itself. You're not interacting with a limited entity. So don't try to give limited solutions. The ultimate solution is that individual's being itself, that individual self, aliveness, consciousness, awareness. Whatever you recognize as that individual, yes, there is the individual and there are the problems. The individual is not the problems. If there is any problem, then the individual does not belong there. If you see there's a problem in the thinking, that's not where the individual is. If you see there's a problem with the body, that is not where the individual is. The individual is literally an individual, an indivisible totality. That is the place of completion. That is what we are all longing for. In one sense, we all need therapy. Each and every single individual in the world needs therapy because they're all lost. They're all away from home. We have just figured out different ways of staying busy to not notice this madness, to not recognize our pain, to not recognize our suffering. We call it goals, dreams, ambitions, vision, accomplishing things. These are all different ways of saying, I am lost, I don't know what to do, I will do something meaningful in the world, something purposeful, so that I don't have to ask the most important question, why the hell am I here? Why all this in the first place? It is a form of madness. Life, as beautiful as it is, as magical as it is, its beauty and magic comes from the underlying entity supporting everything. Consciousness. Life itself is a form of sickness. It's an infectious disease. It has its own ways of spreading. It has its own ways of affecting things. In a way, it is a cancerous growth because you are not in control of it. Your body is growing, your body is changing, cells are multiplying. You don't call that cancer. Why? Because your body is in control of it. Now, when do you recognize something as cancer? When your body has no ability to control that growth. The cells start multiplying and the body does not know how to stop. Otherwise, a cancer cell is just like any other cell. It is living, it is alive, it wants to grow, it wants to expand. It is doing its own thing. But it's doing it outside the rules the body has set for itself. Our thoughts are exactly the same way. It is a cancerous growth of ideas happening when we are not watching, when we are not aware. If only we can see our thoughts like the way we can see our body, we will all just freak out. If we stand in front of a mirror, we would look like monsters. We can't even recognize who we are. But we don't think about it. We busy ourselves in activities. Up until now, this has worked because you have to be busy to survive. You have to be busy to eat. You have to be busy to earn a living. What happens when that day comes when you don't have to be busy? That day will come. We are moving towards that future. And classic example is here in America. Compared to the rest of the world, compared to most other places, at least one small group of people have the opportunity to think about their condition, think about their situation. They don't have to think about food, at least not all the time. They don't have to think about protecting themselves from some danger, at least all the time. There are moments during the day when they are free to contemplate on their condition. What we have observed is the more free time individuals have, the more they become aware of this sickness. Aloneness brings it out. Instead of seeing this as a real problem that has to be addressed, we blame aloneness. We blame loneliness. We blame that individual's inability to interact with the world, do something useful. People who need help, who are asking for help, are far superior than those who are pretending that they don't need help. Because you have not even acknowledged the problem. The problem is real. The only reason why we have not had this grand movement towards the inside, we have not had this momentous inward shift, is because our psychotherapy has failed. It has failed miserably. More than providing a solution, it also becomes one other problem an individual has to deal with. If it is helping you, if it is taking away some of your suffering, if it is introducing you to that pristine place called you, then you're willing to pay a price. You will say, okay, whatever it requires, I'm going to pay the price and I'm going to get it. Now, when you're not getting what you're supposed to be getting, when your problems are not getting solved and you are still asked to pay the price, isn't that a problem? The very thought of psychotherapy kind of scares people. I don't know if I'm going to get rid of my problem, but I know for sure what I'm going to get rid of. Some of my money, some of my wealth. The individual is already in a precarious situation. He wants help. He wants connection. He wants conversation. And he wants solutions. But it's become too much of a business. Business is fine as long as there is a meaningful, useful product that the person can make use of. It's because fundamentally we have not understood what an individual represents. We don't know who a person is on the inside. Now, how can you be a psychotherapist? How can you help someone else without knowing who they are on the inside? Without knowing, when all problems are removed, what is it that I'm interacting with? What does this individual represent? What does an ideal individual without any problems look like? We don't even have a basic model of health. We don't even have a basic model of mental well-being. Hence,